How do you feel is a very simple question, but that is the most important question that we ask all of our patients because everything we do is kind of based on that.
And then he runs the test again and he said, hey, can you take off your shirt? And I was like, okay. So I take off my shirt and then he runs the test again. Like I've taken off my bracelets, I've taken off my necklace, I've taken off everything. I'm just in my underwear. And he's gone for about 10 minutes and I'm just laying on this table. In medical school, you didn't really have any training on listening. So people aren't used to anybody on the clinical side actually listening to it. All right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Living360.
Hey.
This is our inaugural podcast. This is the first episode of the podcast series Living360, where we're going to go into depth on a series of different topics. And they're going to go beyond just basic things that we would look at within the clinic. We'll also explore things with culture, things with personal identity, things with current events, things that are happening in the industry, all sorts of different topics that are going to help give you food for thought.
That's right. It's basically a podcast on a 360-degree view of what makes up healthy living.
Absolutely.
Healthy, successful, living, a type of living that's worth living.
Living360.
That's
that
right.
Type of living.
That's right. So that's what we're here to talk about. Unfiltered. We're not paid for by any kind of marketing or anything like that. Like this is all just unfiltered us. So you're gonna get the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Well, one of the big goals of the clinic. So I think we're gonna backtrack in a second and kind of do some introductions. But one of the big focal points, both as individuals and then how we ended up linking up to create 360 Health and Performance Medicine, is our commitment to giving away information. I think right now we're in an era in our culture where the access to information has never been as great as it is now, and a commitment to making sure that you get qualified information and quality information, especially when it comes to your health and wellness, is huge, and it's something that's really difficult to find.
It is, but it brings up a really odd dichotomy in our society now. Like you said, that there has never been this much information that's like right at our fingertips. Yeah. But there is not a shortage of uninformed people. How does that happen?
I have to admit, I have tried a lot of TikTok recipes and they did not work. And I ruined a few couches with TikTok cleaning hacks. So there's a lot of information. Not all of it is great.
Yes. So let us be your filter to kind of filter through all of that stuff. We do it all the time at work anyway. So we just wanted to get on a nice podcast and do that for fun.
Yes. So this is our nice podcast. Yes. So Chris, you want to start?
Yes. So my name is Chris Neal, and I'm one of the co-owners of 360 Health and Performance Medicine. So we are a medical clinic, and we do telemedicine, and we focus on basically everything that helps you perform better. How do you feel is a very simple question, but that is the most important question that we ask all of our patients because everything we do is kind of based on that. There's a lot of scientific advances now that we have access to that can help improve how you feel. You might not be sick, might not be, broken or hurt, but if we can do something to help you get through your day better, lose more weight, have more energy, have more focus, those are the kind of things that we really geek out on. And that's what the clinic is all based on.
Yeah, I think it's a silly thing. It sounds really simple to say we want we start the clinic to make people feel better, but the reality is we live in a culture where that's sort of like a novel concept. It's wild, the idea that you should feel good, you should feel good, and if you're not feeling good, then we need to figure out how to make you feel good, not just keep you alive, which has sort of been the staple of Western medicine for the last century, which is kind of like, okay, let's make sure that you're just still on. Versus how do we make sure that you're actually performing at your peak and feeling good? In
medicine, we call that being, what we communicate to our patients is that you're fine. And it's like, well, doc, I'm here because of these 6 things. It's like, no, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. You're doing great for an average 46-year-old male.
Oh. Well, we hear that on the back. We get it from the patients all the time when it's like, I came in and now, I had all of this kind of stuff going on, and my doctor looks at my blood work now and he says, whoa, everything's looking great. What are you doing? Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's a really cool experience. It's something unique, and these clinics have started becoming more popular. So that's part of why, there's a good and bad side to all of that, and we really try to take the time to make sure that we educate patients, educate you on what's going on in your body, and help you make informed decisions. So
yes,
my name is Jonathan Davis. I'm the co-owner of 360 Health and Performance Medicine. I worked with Chris before, and we hit it off. I actually started as a patient of his. My background was in business development. When I was in college, I worked in health and fitness. I've always been a bit of a nutrition nut. I believe in biohacking. I'm an avid evangelist for it. I think that there's no reason to just by nature lay back and accept what's happening with you. You can always do something. You can always take steps to give yourself an edge, and that's...
I'm not going out without a fight.
Absolutely. I will go down fighting. And so, I was going through a really difficult time, and kind of I came into touch with Chris, and turned out that there was some stuff going on in my blood work that was really apparent. And I was, I think, 30 at the time, and I did not even realize that would be a discussion. It was not something that had ever been mentioned to me by my doctor, that hormones are something that you could even look at before a certain age. And, it completely turned my life around. So we started working together, and then after a bit, we realized we had an opportunity to do something really unique by partnering up, and we started 360 Health and Performance Medicine.
And we knew as a part of that we are all about information. Like if you just catch John and I like out around town or whatever, like we're talking about this stuff just randomly anyway.
Our partners are not happy about it. It gets old.
I know.
It gets old.
It gets old for them. But like we're always talking about this, like whatever we're doing, and so it is something that we embody through and through, and we just love sharing it with people. So what better way to share it with the masses than a podcast?
Yeah. So why don't you give a little background on you? Because
I didn't do that.
Yeah, that's my history, but I'm sure that your medical history is really interesting for especially within a clinic like what we do. Your experience, which is touched in so many different aspects of medicine, is what makes us uniquely positioned when it comes to how we kind of look at things holistically. And that, I think, is really fascinating.
My medical background started when I was in middle school. I went to the local hospital in Cary, North Carolina, and volunteered, as a candy striper. And then every year after that, I was doing something in medicine. Basically led me to become an EMT, and I worked through college, like as an EMT on an ambulance, and did a lot of research and everything. Went to medical school at East Carolina University Medical School, and I went through first year, second, and then I really didn't like a lot of the things I was hearing. I was the curious one. I was the one in the class that when I raised my hand, all the other students were like, "Oh God, here we go."
You were that guy?
Yeah, I was definitely that guy.
Spitball.
Yeah, I was definitely that, because a lot of the things that were said, like I would question and challenge to some, respectfully, but like there's a lot of things in medicine that deserve to be challenged.
Yeah.
A lot of ideas and theories and how we do things is like, from like Hippocrates, like way back there, like, from real, like ancient times, like that's why we do things. And, or it seems that way, so, and I still haven't lost that challenge inside of me to like buck the system. But I think that's the way you get true performance, right. You have to. So anyway, so I took some time off. I did more research because I didn't want to lock myself into a certain field. And in medicine, in medical school, you have to choose your field, and that's the field that you're in for your entire life, basically, unless you want to go and redo a lot of the school all over again. So I stopped, I paused, I did research for a while, then I went into business and opened up a couple businesses, and then ultimately I went to get my master's degree in clinical medicine. So I did that, and then I started working in general and vascular surgery for several years. I had an amazing mentor who really taught me a lot about how to look at things and how to treat people. So one of the key things he left with me was that he said, "Chris, never rush with anything that you find is important." And that in medicine is like, like a
it's
heretic.
Also completely the exact opposite of the fundamentals of Western medicine.
Yeah, and we can go into that more. But yeah, he was an amazing mentor. Really helped shape my life. But then, so I went from there. Worked in orthopedic surgery, in upper extremity orthopedics, shoulders and elbows and hands and stuff like that. I worked for some time, like helping to lead a pain management clinic at a hospital, like an inpatient, like the really bad stuff that comes in, not just pushing methadone. It was like really at a big hospital, Tampa General Hospital, actually in Florida. And then after that, I've always been into health and fitness and everything, and then I came down with a hormone disorder when I was 28 years old, actually. So I had finally figured out that I needed to be on hormones, and that obviously changed my life in a major way. But over time, I kind of started dabbling into the business side of it, or the clinical side of it, and learning more and more about it. I started in a hormone clinic, working there as the clinical director, and then expanded and did different things, worked for other people in other clinics for a long time. And then I still had this challenge, like, we could do things better. Like, there's more we could do, there's so much more out there. And so basically what culminated with all of that was when I got connected with John, we began talking about these things, and he's the first person that was like, yeah, and we could also do this, and we could also do this. And it's like, oh my God, like, the skies parted, the sun came down. It's like, yes, finally,
there's such a speed epidemic in our culture. So there is this idea that it's quick and fast and one size fits all. In medicine, nothing could be further from the truth, than
absolutely.
one size fits all. And 9 out of 10 times we treat things in a one size fits all method. And then when that size doesn't fit, then we'll flip the med, or we'll be like, oh, try this drug, and then we'll do this thing. And it's, and it goes even beyond just the medical side of it. It goes into the experience as a person who's coming with a problem, because there's nothing, in my experience, more vulnerable, and more off-putting and offsetting than having to go in front of somebody and say, hey, I'm like having problems, or I'm having X,
yes.
Y. Yes. And I think one of the disservices we've done as a culture is to not take to take for granted how difficult that is for an individual to do. And we dismiss people frequently, and we spend as little time as we can with people. And as a result, we have a sick culture. And finally, people are starting to wake up to the fact that they have options, that if you want to make an investment in your body and make an investment in your health, you actually have that option, because a lot of people didn't know that was an option.
That's true. That's true. And there's finally more and more people, like, more and more clinics that are attempting to develop that option. Functional medicine, naturopaths, they are very much involved with that. But that reminds me of a patient that I saw when I was in orthopedics in the clinic. She was, she had to have been 80 years old, little tiny frail, great grandma, type, and she fell and she broke her wrist, and she broke it pretty bad. So it was the point where it needed surgery, but she's very, very old and frail, but she needed surgery. So I'm going through and talking with her and showing her the x-ray and telling her about the surgery. She's never had surgery before, and she's scared, and we're going through all this stuff 15, 20 minutes into it. And my supervising doc came to the door of our exam room. The door's wide open. So the patient is there, and her daughter is there, and her daughter's probably in her, 50s or 60s. Yeah. And he stands there and I'm like, hey, doc, how's it going? This is the doctor, just so you know, that he and I are going to be doing your wrist surgery. Yeah. And he tells me, he said, Chris, you know what the diagnosis is. You should be in and out of this room in less than 5 minutes. and it's like in front of the patients right there. And it's like, but we were talking about the surgery. We're like, this is a very emotional thing for her to go through. We're going through everything, and we're just, and he's like, but you're taking way too much time. You need to be out of here and get to the next patient. So many instances like that in my life, where people are literally trying to teach me the system or force the system of the Western medicine system on me, and it led me to say, you know what, I need to start my own private clinic. It's crazy.
It's wild. I haven't spent a time. I've had pretty serious knee surgery. I had MRSA when I was 27, and I almost lost my leg. That was really scary. I was lucky in that my mother's been in healthcare for a while. She worked at Kaiser Permanente, and she was able to basically help finagle that, because at that time I didn't have health insurance, and so I went into the hospital, and that was a really scary experience and very vulnerable experience. But I've told you, my favorite story when it comes to just that was a pretty severe instance, but then there's the general things. And that's the part that I think is always wild. And I've told you the story when I went in and I had to get an EKG for just general health. At that time I was taking Adderall. And they said, okay, well, we just want to make sure that there's not going to be any issues with your heart. So I did this. And so the doctor runs the test once, and then he says, and then he runs the test again. And he said, hey, can you take off your shirt? And I was like, okay. So I take off my shirt, and then he runs the test again. And then this continues until I'm in nothing but my underwear. I've taken off my bracelets, I've taken off my necklace, I've taken off everything. I'm just in my underwear. And he's like, okay, hang on. And then he leaves. And he's gone for about 10 minutes. And I'm just laying on this table with all these things like looking like a sci-fi film hooked up to me like this. And then he comes back in. He's like, well, it's weird. I'm not really sure what it means. There's something going on with your heart. You should see a cardiologist. And I was like, wait, so is this like serious? And he goes, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't run, but you should go see a cardiologist. And I was like,
wow.
So what are you seeing? Like, I was like sitting there asking, so what exactly is it that you've seen? What is going on? He said, well, I can't tell. It looks like your heart might not be getting oxygen. And I was like, so does that mean I'm going to die? He said, well, I don't know. I would see a cardiologist.
Do I have to pay my credit card bill? Yes or no?
I'm like literally trying to get a straight answer out of this guy. And then I was like, and I remember saying, I was like, well, I'm like kind of panicking right now. And he goes, okay.
And he backs away.
And he literally backed out of the room and he just left.
Wow.
And I'm sitting here in my underwear.
That's awesome.
And he had handed me the referral sheet. So, and that was a big eye-opening experience for me because, my mom is the CEO of a hospital now. And so I was able to send that form, the 7 EKGs that they took, to her. She sent it to the head of cardiology, and they said, this is nothing. This is not a big deal. This is
you're an athlete.
Yeah, this is like not a huge deal at all. And she but I was like, if you're just somebody who doesn't have access to somebody who could do that, you'd either get a huge insurance bill that's going to rack up, or you just panic for days and days thinking, I don't know if I'm about to have a heart attack tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or, you know, and it's scary, but that whole commitment to taking a little bit more time just to inform somebody what's going on and to communicate with them is very contradictory to how our medical system is set up.
But it's all about priorities.
Yeah.
And our medical system is set up based around money and billing and business. Like in school, we got 2 weeks of medical billing, how to bill a patient. You know how much time they taught us, or how much time they spent on how to listen?
Well, there wasn't enough time after billing.
There wasn't enough time.
Billing was
zero. It was not enough time. Yeah, and so that's it. Like we don't listen anymore.
Yeah. So that's sort of a little background on 360 Health and Performance Medicine. So one of the things that we kind of wanted to dive into, every episode of the podcast, we're going to go into something different. We're going to talk about neuroplasticity at some point, which is something that if you haven't heard of, you will certainly hear about, either from us on this podcast or just in.
It's super exciting. Super exciting to geek out on that stuff. I love that stuff.
And you'll hear about it. I mean, you'll see an ad on Instagram for it or something because it's everywhere because of psychedelic therapy and the expansion of psychedelic therapy. We're going to do episodes that talk about leadership, which is a huge part of how we interact with our culture and how we achieve health. But because 360 Health, the whole purpose of this clinic was to help people have a holistic 360-degree approach, we created what we call the 360-degree angle, which is your wheel of health.
Yeah.
Wheel of health. Excuse me, not angle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's our wheel.
It's our wheel. And there's going to be more than
imagine the wheel of fortune, like the giant.
And you spin it.
Yeah, with the little tiles inside. Yeah.
But we basically sat down and looked at, okay, what do we think, outside of just what we do within the clinic, what do we think is sort of the formula to a healthy and
life.
a healthy, fulfilled life? Because it goes beyond just medications. We are, even though this is an alternative side of Western medicine, we would consider ourselves a little more on the holistic side, but it's still medications. But there's more to it, to having a healthy life, than just, a medication. There's a balance. And so our wheel is not going to be perfect. It's not going to be completely full. It's an active wheel, but we figured today it'd be a good thing to kind of break down what we think is sort of the best approach, where you need to put energy in your life to find balance and have that sort of healthy, holistic 360 wellness vibe.
Yeah, exactly. And, we want to really look at the whole human aspect, because this is something that most people don't think of. Like when you come to a hormone clinic, like as a patient, you are motivated by how you feel. Yeah. I feel tired. I feel like run down. I can't lose weight. I'm not recovering well. So those are the human aspects of things that are going on. And the best way to go into it is to just have an open slate or a clean slate. Like, I just feel like this here, please help.
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, we go through our process of discussing things, talking about things that include almost the entire wheel. Like, we go through a lot of stuff because if we shouldn't rush through something that we find important. You know, so a lot of times if you don't rush and you make sure you cover all the angles, then you won't miss it.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a little gem in there somewhere where it's like, oh, okay, now that we've been talking, you know, you lost your job, the dog died, and your girlfriend ran out on you. Like, and it's like, okay, those are things that you know that we need to work on. You know, and we do that. You know, so in a lot of ways, you know, yes, we are performance clinic, but we're kind of like psychiatrists too.
Yeah, well, I always joke like my
life
mom,
coaches.
My mom's a total witch doctor, and you're a witch clinician. You know, it's I tease, but it's kind of like. You can't really dive into somebody without intuiting a little bit of what's going on. You can't just literally look at a piece of paper and say, okay, you got this with this. It's kind of, you got to ask those questions and kind of get a feel. And then I think with you, what's always been fascinating is this ability to kind of hear a little bit of talking and then know what question you need to ask. Like, do you drink? You know, only a handle a night. You know, it's like, you know, it's like, and it can come out 30 minutes into the consult, but there's that kind of that 360 wheel can really inform, okay, now I'm seeing this piece, which is not typically what we would look for.
A lot of that is that I like to entertain myself.
So
I'm a little sarcastic. Yeah, I'm a little sarcastic sometimes. But yeah, it's you know, it is a process, and I find that like over the years, so many patients are already ingrained in how to come and see a doctor. So they'll come in. They'll say, hey, what's going on today? How are you feeling? You know, well, I have Osgood-Schlatter's disease, and my lab says this, and this, and my numbers will look like this, and this. And it's like, oh, okay. All right, well, how do you feel? Like, what do you mean? It's like, well, how do you feel? Like, and I have to kind of pull that out of them, and they start talking, and then it just comes out with a fire hydrant,
like a broken dam.
It just comes out like a fire hydrant, and then you know they're like 15 minutes and 20 minutes into answering this question that nobody's asked them in a medical clinic before, and they stop and they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. You know, you are so awesome. You know, this is the best consultation I've ever had, and I'm like, I haven't said anything. All I asked was how you feel.
Well, like you said in med school,
and I'm listening. That's it. It's not rocket science. Like, wait until I do something and then say.
Well, it's like you said in medical school, you didn't really have any training on listening, so people aren't used to anybody on the clinical side actually listening to them. Yeah, like, you know, and so that it makes a huge difference, not only from the ability to inform, because like how can you guide somebody on their health without listening, but also for the person to be able to process, because I do think people need to externally process information. You know, there are some of us that need to do it more. I certainly have, like, the walls have heard all of my conversations with myself, but I do think we need to hear things out loud sometimes, because, you know, when you come in with Osgood-Schlatter's disease, that's usually a reflection of a lot of spinning. You've had a lot of time to think. You've had a lot of time to research. You've gone down the rabbit hole, but you could totally get liberated from that just by being able to process that with another person who could be like, well, you might have Osgood-Schlatter's disease, or you might just be stressed. You know, you might just need to fix your sleep pattern. So with that, we should dive in. Let's talk about the wheel. Let's hit it.
Let's see. We talked about the three. Yeah, we talked about that. The first part of the wheel we're going to talk about is physical wellness. Physical wellness. So that's a pretty obvious one. Everybody, you know, generically knows that we need to get out and stay active. You know, what does that mean? Well, now in today's information, you know, age, there's so much information. Like, you have to do your exercises like this, or you're wrong. You know, no. You need to be doing calisthenics. You know, and no, hold on, no, we need to be doing weightlifting. It's like, okay, you know, you're running all over the place. It's like, well, I don't know what the right answer is, you know. So physical wellness and staying active is something that we preach all the time, and it's not something that is, you know, strict, defined, but you need to move your body, you know. And depending on what your goals are, like, that's how we frame, physical wellness. So if you want to be a power lifter, then, making yoga your exclusive physical wellness, like that is just not going to, like yoga's nice and everything, but it's just not going to turn you into a power lifter. So so we start with goals and everything and physical wellness, how that fits in your life.
Yeah.
So that's what we like to do, and staying active on a regular basis, and how to do that, what's going to be fun. We're going to go through different types of physical wellness. Actually, we're probably going to be doing a podcast where we explore some really interesting and technologically based gyms, which are kind of cool. So we're both like workout junkies, and so like we'll dig into a lot of that.
Yeah. Well, and when I was 20, I was a personal trainer. And I was doing that when I was in school, and I worked at 24 Hour Fitness. And it was funny because I remember, I did. I totally worked at 24 Hour Fitness. And I remember, one of the interesting things, especially now when I look at physical wellness, is that we are working to make a more inclusive fitness environment, but it was never traditionally super inclusive, which is why people kind of have this fear. And so I think it's important to define, like, physical wellness. That doesn't just mean a gym. I mean, that could be canoeing, that could be hiking, that can be swimming, that can be jogging, that can be yoga, that can be Pilates. It's anything that makes you active. And now we're at a time where people are really trying to create an environment. And that's not just us. I think the fitness industry in general has realized that it was first and foremost for like muscle people, and if you're not there, and if you're not, you suck. Don't even bring yourself in here. And you chose to be like that. And that was the old motto, and it's kind of like an antiquated American concept of like, if you're overweight, that's because you chose to be overweight and ate Fruit Loops and stuff. And we know now that your health is a lot more complex than that. We basically fed everybody chemicals for about 20, 30 years in our history.
Yeah, we have anyway. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. The pandemic had a big part to play in that too. Yeah. Because during the pandemic, most all of the gyms closed down, and so all of the people, the personal trainers that worked at the gym, they're out of a job. Yeah. So they all go to social media and to YouTube, and they actually made videos to keep their clientele like up with everything and physically active. And how do you exercise and stay active while you're just stuck at home?
That's so true.
And so that is a huge wealth of information of thousands and thousands and thousands of videos that I recommend people do all the time.
That's
and they're
so
like,
true.
because we're in a busy lifestyle right now. It's like, like I got to drive to the gym, I got to change clothes after work, and then I got to get home and feed the kids and everything. It's like, well, if you can do that 3 times a week, that's great, But if you really want to meet your goal, you're going to need to do something the other, 3 other days during the week or so. So right from home, just do 20 minutes. Just search YouTube, 20-minute video, or 20-minute workout video.
I never even thought about that. You're so right. COVID did really make that change, because I was like gym junkie, exclusive. And then
before that, to get those videos, you had to pay. Like there were like services out there, like what's that body. I can't remember. But there were services and companies out there where you'd have to pay a P90X. That was one of them.
Yeah,
you had to,
I know P90X.
You had to pay, or you had to like get the burned disc from your cousin.
Yeah. The burned disc.
Yeah.
No.
Oh yeah.
Not the burned disc, Lord.
Oh yeah.
Not the Tybo. Not the Tybo VHS.
CDRW.
Oh my God. But it's so funny, because it's like, you're right. Like, I'd never done yoga, and then we started looking up yoga because I was like, okay, COVID happened, and I was like, can't not exercise. And so you have to figure out, we get creative. We're bench pressing the table. But it did kind of create a different environment, makes people kind of think differently. So I've never thought about that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, but it does pinpoint why, again. So right now we kind of have this time where there's more opportunity, more information. And you're right. I mean, I think being able to squeeze in the 20 minutes is something that I started learning how to do, because I was very diligent about my hour and a half. And then, now you're right. Like, some of the best workouts I've had have literally been just like little YouTube videos that I looked up. And also they were entertaining. I did do a twerk video. I'm not gonna lie. There was a twerk fitness, and I was sore everywhere in places that I did not understand how. I think it was like a pop sugar
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I don't think that one's in my history.
I doubt it. So,
It's funny.
you don't have to do that one, but
It's
out there.
There's all kinds. There's all kinds out there. Actually, during the part of the pandemic, there was a certain type of EDM dancing that my wife was learning how to do.
Oh, yeah,
and
the shuffle step?
Yeah, the shuffle step. So that was like cardio. For her. She'd go down in the garage and and do her shuffle step stuff, and it was great, and it's fun, and she enjoys it, and that just keeping the body moving is so important.
And now you can shuffle in the grocery store.
Yeah.
You never know.
Oh yeah, now it's everywhere. Yeah. So next up, the next part of the wheel is diet, nutrition. So everybody, is kind of like physical fitness. They just kind of lump diet with that. Diet and exercise. Diet, yes, it's important. Yeah. It is the fuel that powers our body. I've always been a little bit intrigued by our philosophy on diet. And I think, and this is I'm not trying to throw shade on anyone, but I just find it interesting that we are so arrogant to think, and I'm talking me included, we're so arrogant to think that the way that we think about food and like organic food, for example, and how we distinguish what kind of food we need to eat and what kind of food we don't need to eat, because this is what is best for our body. It inherently sets up this thought process that our bodies can't handle food, or our digestive systems are designed fragile. Right. And yes, there's certain things that we need to work on and pay close attention to and stay healthy, but if you compare our diet, and we're I'd call us like a healthy, relatively clean American diet, and
cheeseburgers and fries.
not exclusively,
Pizza
but every
pockets.
now and then, but we relatively clean, and most people that we know, they try and eat organic or whatever. Some people are really hardcore about it, but if we compare that diet to the diet of someone that lives in another country or something, they don't have all those things and resources and stuff like that, and guess what, they do just fine.
Well, that's the craziest. Fundamentally, we always have to remember, and I'm not against this at all, but America is a business first and foremost. Mm-hmm. So we forget that if there's a whole dieting industry, it's based off of money first. And so you go over to Europe and they don't do they don't have all the crazy stuff that we have. Their whole thing is much more about portion control. So I was blown away when I started really traveling internationally and seeing how culture affects diet everywhere. You don't see a lot of big people a lot of other places in the world, but you also don't see the quinoa multi-grain super that
grass-fed organic.
That's an American thing, and in Europe they don't have a lot of that, but they're not big. Mm-hmm. It's just so. I think.
Why do you think that is? What do you think? I had a friend of mine give me who's from. He was from the Middle East somewhere. I think he was from Saudi Arabia. They gave me his viewpoint on that. I want to share it with you. But why do you think? What do you think is the motivation for other countries as a society to just not really have very many overweight people?
Well, I don't think that so I don't know if there's an incentive necessarily. I think it's more of a cultural thing, because if you even look at the history of how we feed America, mm-hmm. It's different than a lot of the cultural identities as far as how food is correlating to culture in other places in the world. But I link the food issue here mm-hmm. to an emotional thing. I think it's a cultural and emotional issue. Food is any other type of addiction that we have. And we also put chemicals in our food to make them more addictive. That was part of the business strategy. But when you go over to Europe, it's much more of it's a communal event. And I know that I'm not saying it's never been that here, but I just don't think generally it is. I mean, we were the ones who created cup holders, because fast food on the go, the idea of stopping your day to eat together mm-hmm. is not really a thing that we pushed. It's not an idea that we pushed. So that's thing one. And then the other thing is I just saw other cultures move more. Every time I was around, and when I was when I would travel, I'd see a lot more biking. I'd see a lot more walking. Mm-hmm. Fascinatingly, I saw a lot fewer gyms. So I found that movement was much more part of the normal mm-hmm. behavior within just normal life. Mm-hmm. And the focus, gym time, they were there, but they were not the dominating factor in why people were smaller. It's just that life involved more movement. People on a very visceral fundamental level understood that I got to walk to the grid. I got to do these things. I got to move my body. It became a very natural cultural thing. So, you know, that's my hot take. That's what I think. I'm curious to hear what.
Well, I think as you were talking, I was just thinking about this. I think the motivation in America, or what is leading a lot of the motivation in America for weight loss, are maintaining a slimmer frame is kind of tied to Photoshop technology.
This is your profile.
This is my
I need to look
thought.
like the photo that I put online.
Yeah. So if there's an app that can do it for me quick, then you know, if there's not an app and that app only works so well, God, darn it, I gotta get to the gym now.
That's what it is.
I guess I gotta go run.
You know what? Toss everything I said out. That's what it is. It's Photoshop. We need to blame Photoshop
because it's all about the gram. It's all about the gram right now.
Oh my God. You know, it's funny. I was like in the first generation of like Facebook when it exploded. And I remember
I got you beat. I had MySpace.
I had a MySpace.
You did?
I actually had a MySpace, and I put up my model photos when I was in middle school, and it was everybody was like, "Oh, did you see John's model photos?" And it was like best day of my middle school life.
That's funny.
By the way, those were self-timed model photos of my mom's quilting room.
Hey, we won't tell anyone.
I was the first influencer.
We're a family here at Living360.
We won't tell anyone except for everybody.
You can feel good that your secret is protected here.
I'm so grateful. But no, I think besides the gram, which is, you know, clearly the correct answer, but why diet and exercise are linked is actually why I think they're more successful a lot of other places, just that's part of the identity and the culture. And I think that's something that we're now learning, that there is not a correct way to eat. Yeah. There is a lot of different correct ways to eat. Yeah. But we've got to tailor that to our individual bodies, our goals, and our lifestyle. Like, you know, how much do you need to eat if you're going to be a power lifter versus if you like to go walk everywhere and bike everywhere? You know, it's like the correct diet for somebody who's training as a power lifter or somebody who's a professional athlete compared to somebody who's like me, who works out every day for like an hour. I don't need as much to eat as him, and I probably need different stuff than him or her.
So custom tailoring your diet to your lifestyle, your activities.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Custom tailor.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, and I'm not advocating this. I just think I've always found it interesting. So this friend of mine, who's a doctor, I'm pretty sure it was Saudi Arabia, and he stopped me in the hospital once, and we were just talking about things and problems and stuff. I don't advocate this. Just by the way, I just found it interesting. He said, you know, back home, we don't have obesity like this. You know, in America, it's just not. It's just not a thing. And I asked him, I said, well, why do you think that is? And he said, because as a society, if you are overweight, then all of society will shame you. Like they will actively shame you. And so I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that's a good thing. Yeah. But I found it very interesting as they kind of police that sort of thing. And like you could be on a bus, you know, or someone sees you on the street, and like a stranger will walk up to you and chastise you, you know, and they said and I don't, like I said, I don't think that's, you know, obviously I'm in this field to help people, you know, but
you're not going to pelt them.
Yeah. We won't be walking through like the main street, like shame,
right?
You know, but I thought that just, you know, when we learn about different cultures and different things that they do, like how that's played out, because there's been different phases of diet and exercise through history, like the Great Depression. Yeah. That set up a whole cascade of generations of people that like, I have to finish everything that's on this plate. Everything the plate has to be clean or else mama's going to be mad. You know? And I get the basis behind that, but you know, we went from that very quickly into, as far as food goes, a country of opulence. Yeah,
Cheesecake Factory.
So much food. Like, so you were a personal trainer when you were 20. Yeah. I was a personal trainer when I was 21 or 22, something like that. And so I worked there, and part-time I worked at Maggiano's.
That is the funniest mix. Is that where you got your clients?
Yeah. So like at Maggiano's, it's an Italian restaurant. It's a chain everywhere, but like they are very famous for family style. Yeah. You know, so I'm not exaggerating. They'd have a bowl of pasta like this big, you know, and it put down in front of one person, and I'm like, well, you know that that's supposed to be family style, so we share Like all of that. They're like, no, I'm good. And sure enough, 15 minutes later, he's asking for a refill.
That's so
and
crazy.
it's like,
It's
wow.
But I really think part of that I think there's a cultural aspect of that really does have to do with excess. I mean, I think in general, because we have a culture that not as community driven as some other parts of the world, that isolation is going to show up in a lot of different ways. And we have the opportunity for excess. So we have alcohol, that's an opportunity for excess. We have, binging, that's an opportunity for excess. Drugs, that's an opportunity for excess.
Yeah.
And if you look at
and the business models push it.
Yeah, if you look at our addiction rates, our obesity rates, if you look at it, you really see a cultural issue that I think ties into one of the other parts of the wheel, which is our mental health, But I think as for diet, I think that's my little 2 cents. But I do think it's cool because it does show that you don't have to eat like sad quinoa and if you don't want to do that, they eat the cheeses, they eat the pastas, they do all that, and they're just more active, and they control their portions. And it was a little bit of an adjustment for me when I was over there in Europe, because I was like, oh,
where's the rest of it?
Yeah. What is this? What do I do with this?
Is this an aperitif?
Can I get 5 of the main course, please?
Oh, we're doing tapas. Okay, that's the kind of place where I didn't see it on the wall. Yeah. we're at a tapas place, I guess.
Yeah, tapas pastas. That's what it was called. Tapas pastas. International chain.
That's funny.
So what is mental health the next on the wheel?
Yeah. So
that's perfect.
Go ahead. Why don't you flow into mental health there?
So that's actually perfect. So that kind of leads in. Well, so mental health is enormous, and it's finally getting the credit that it's always been due. We have taken time to get here as a culture, and even as a world, to a place where we can accept that just because it's not tangible doesn't mean that it's not real. And mental health is one of the most challenging things for that purpose, because we are used to mental health being sort of this abstract thing, or the extreme cases, people that struggle with schizophrenia or psychosis, or, the real stuff that it's like, okay, it's not tangible, but I can see it.
Yeah.
It is so much more subtle than that. And it affects so much more so many more of us, than we realize. And a lot of that comes from culture and our ability to be connected as a culture. And I think that we're finally realizing COVID really highlighted how much we need to be connected. And we were not super connected before COVID, but after COVID, we started to realize, okay, we need to not be so isolated, and we need to take our mental health seriously, because in that isolation, when you're in those 4 padded walls and you're in solitary confinement, you finally realize, I don't know if this thing is working as smooth as it's a really critical part of the wheel. And if you don't consider it, you can't have a healthy approach to your life. You can have a healthy body and a healthy diet, but if you are not taking time for your mental health and investing in your mental health, you can't have a healthy life. You can't have a fulfilled life.
It has a lot to do with how you feel.
Yeah.
And that has to be the central core question of the central core of the Living 360 model. How do you feel?
How do you feel?
And that's going to be different from one person that, like lives in Spokane, Washington, versus someone that, lives down here on Miami Beach.
Right.
But still, it's not any more important for one than the other.
Right.
And we just want to pass that on and share that. So you're right. It's absolutely vital.
Well,
and how to tap into that is what's cool. So talk about how we tap into that part.
Well, one of the things I want to say too about mental health is, for your physical health that you need to exercise. You don't have to be sick to need to exercise.
It's tangible, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think we need to approach mental health with the same idea that I don't need to be mentally unwell to invest in my mental health. Any more than I need to be physically unwell to invest in my physical health.
Yeah.
And I think when people start to think of it that way, they realize, oh, I should journal or meditate or find ways to invest in checking in with me. I'm not a huge therapy person personally. It didn't work as well for me. I found other methods worked better. I did transcendental meditation for years, got me through some of the toughest moments in my life. But, I have friends who have made leaps and bounds in therapy. And it's it's different to go knowing that I'm going because I want to actually improve my mental wellness and my mental performance versus like I'm going because I think I'm broken. You know?
Yeah.
And the people that have the most success in any of those things, whether it's meditation, therapy, life coaching, any of those sort of things, are the ones who say, actually, I feel generally like I'm not comparing myself to the rest of the world, but I think I could actually just be a little happier. Or I could be a little, you know, I could just, or I feel fine, but I want to just make sure that I'm maintaining that because.
So I love your correlation to physical wellness because, like, if you think about preventative medicine, like the people that really do well with they eat healthy, they work out, they exercise, they do all this stuff, then, you know, you can say, okay, your risk factors are really, really low. That's great. You know, with mental, and so those types of people generally don't have to go to the doctor very often.
Yeah.
So in the mental wellness, same framework, you know, like if you pay attention to those, most of it, the majority of it is introspection, looking at yourself and you say, you know what, I need to go and I need to take a moment and step outside and just breathe, or I need to go on a walk, or, you know, I need to find a friend and just, you know, sit down and unload a little bit, you know, or whatever, like those types of things. That's your basic preventative maintenance, you know, that I think is even more important than saying, okay, than attaching mental wellness to a psychiatrist per se.
Right.
Because there's all kinds of things. That's another thing. There's all kinds of things you can do.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of options out there.
It's almost like we should rename it mental maintenance.
I like that.
It's because it's really just, it's another piece of your life that you have to invest in. And for me, like, I think now it's becoming more of an idea that can recognize, oh, I want to do this. I want to invest in myself. And I'm a little sensitive with the T word, trauma, because I think it's hyper used online and it's completely, you know, there's definitely real trauma, but I've just heard it on Instagram too many times, and we're going to heal your trauma. Your trauma is all over the table, your trauma. But the reality is that we all do have experiences that are traumatic. You know, we all do. We all walk through life, and those experiences, which we will go into in more depth in our neuroplasticity episode, but those get built into our thinking, and they become rigid constructs. And there are tools that we have that we can use to help break out of them. But even outside of those tools, which are kind of the more radical ways to kind of help shake up the actual biology behind what is structuring those thoughts, there's still the general things you can do, which I love that you said, creating space in your day for yourself, creating time to just breathe, creating pause. You know, I think that is really mindfulness is what you're talking about, and that can change your whole life. Oh yeah, it can definitely give you a boost. One of the things that I like to recommend to people is to, I call it taking yourself on vacation. You know, and you can do it 3 times a day. You can go on vacation 3 times a day. And how much money you make? Not enough. So what you do, you grab your cell phone. You can go to YouTube, and I love YouTube. You can go to YouTube and search tropical paradise with music or something. Yeah. And it'll give you this scene on the beach, and the mind is so powerful. You can just sit in a car in a parking lot and just watch this for 5 minutes and don't talk. Don't talk to anyone. Don't answer calls. Don't search, you know, social media. Just look at that and just stare at it and allow your mind to just kind of soak into the environment there. And I promise you, you will feel a little bit of refreshment after that. You know, and if you do that 3 times a day, just that momentum of maintenance, like really, really, really makes a difference and can give you a lot of peace. I think that's amazing. And it's true. And now we have VR too, virtual reality. So you can really, you really can take 3 vacations if you want to. But I think that pause, for me, when I really started investing in my own mental health, it changed my life because it really created what I call the breath, which is we are a reactive species by nature. And when you practice mindfulness in any capacity or some sort of mental investment and mental maintenance, you have these moments, and it's like a millisecond between action and reaction, where you're right about to, like, this is normally when I start yelling, or this is when I get angry, and you can see it right before. And I remember when that started to pop up in my life, and it completely changed everything, because it was so crazy. It was like I could foresee the potential outcome in that breath, and I could choose to just not react. Yeah. So that's, you know, my little piece on mental health, but I think everything starts up here.
Well, one of the things you mentioned, VR is really cool. I love VR, but now they have a VR meditation. They have a VR meditation system.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Oh, we have it. We have it. Sorry. They do. That's true. By they, you mean we.
Yes.
We are they.
Yes. Like subtle cue.
Missed it. Too subtle. I had the pause. I was in a pause.
You were in the pause.
I was in the middle of a vacation. I was taking a mental vacation.
Yeah, I need you to react now. It's time to react. So, but no, there's a lot of new technologies and new scientific advancements in the mental space, and there's a really cool VR tool that we use with some of our patients, that allows you to basically it's like mental training, mental exercise to learn how to go through things. It connects to your heart rate and your breathing, I believe, and like it helps to guide you through being able to consciously bring your level down. So it's pretty cool. There's a lot of neat stuff out there. We'll dig into that as we go along. And
that's cool. When we do our neuroplasticity, we talk about ketamine therapy and psychedelic medicine.
Yeah, that's like.
We'll talk about the Flowlies. The VR set is called Flowly, and it does biofeedback, which kind of shows you what's happening in you. And we'll talk about that because it's cool. It's
really neat.
We're in a sci-fi era, so there's some cool tools. I mean, we're in the Jetsons.
Yeah, we really are.
No robots yet, but
yeah. Let's go into belief systems, because your mental health and your mental framework definitely builds and stacks, your belief system. So why don't you go into that?
I think belief systems are a really fascinating thing, and I'm not talking about them from like a spiritual belief system necessarily, but I consider belief systems to be the stories that you tell yourself that inform and create the guardrails or the guidelines of your life. And we have a lot more control over these stories than we realize. And I think a lot of the stories that we create in these belief systems we're not totally aware of, and they drive us in a direction. But when we become aware of them, we can choose to change those stories so that the direction that we're heading is one that is more advantageous for us or leads to greener pastures for us. If the belief system is I always screw up my relationships, or I'm never going to be happy at work, or I'm afraid of intimacy, or whatever the story, those are actual mantras that you have told yourself and that you created and that you live by. And one of the interesting things that has emerged through psychedelic medications and psychedelic therapies is that we started to realize that a lot of times they're rooted in something that has nothing to do with your reality. You have the story has popped up, but it's not fundamentally
maybe
based
it's from
on
your
you.
past, or
could be on your past. Could have been something cultural that was given to you, something ancestral that was handed down from childhood, watching your parents. Your experiences growing up in an individualist society. I feel for the people, the youths of today's world.
The youths?
The youths who have to who are overcoming the social barrier with social media, because it was not a thing when I was a kid. And I think it's an interesting, it's an interesting thing as far as how it's created separation as it's expanded, and learning as a society how we, cope with that and how we overcome that. But all these belief systems that we create come from somewhere. And in my opinion, I don't know that you even necessarily need to know where they come from. All you need to know is what they are and decide if they serve you or not.
Exactly.
It's like, I forget, is it Freudian? That is the belief that we got to go look at our parents and look at all the...
Sigmund Freud, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the Freudian method. And I remember when I was talking to a friend who's a therapist, he said, you could do that, but I would look at CBT, because there's a point where does it matter to an extent?
CBT, explain what CBT is.
Oh, sorry, cognitive behavioral therapy,
yeah.
Which is a little bit of a different device that some people use. But I think that when you're constantly unhatching the past, and this came from this, and this came from this, there can be benefits from that, right? But there comes a point where you do have to decide, do I want to keep this story or not? It doesn't matter where it came from. Exactly. I know it didn't come from me.
Exactly.
And that's all that really matters is I didn't choose this story. It was given to me by any number of circumstances. Or sometimes we created the story. And we're just like, well, even better. If I created it, then, and it's not working, why don't I just write a new one? Write a new belief system. And so when you think of belief systems as mantras, I think that you start to take them more seriously, and you really start to hear the voices in your head telling you the things that you know are not benefiting you. And you
Yeah.
can make active choices to change that.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like that. But one of the things I did want to mention is that like there's been so little focus on not only mental health but these belief systems and everything too. Just having that outlook, like being able to separate yourself and look take a big like 10,000 foot view on yourself and your life and your goals and the direction that you're heading is so important. I mean, that's where it starts. Most of us are so like wrapped up into the rat race that we don't even see, the big picture and how other things can affect that.
That's so true.
So we like highlighting that and understanding and helping people understand and become empowered with resources, whatever direction that you need to turn to, and in a healthy way.
Yeah,
so
we like to, even in what's been a big mission point within the clinic was to create a working environment that directly contradicts the belief systems of the majority of the American working environment, to prove that you can have a collaborative, supportive, growth-oriented work environment and people will still show up. And you can compensate people fairly and they will still work hard. Yeah. And you can create an environment where people have the choice to leave and they will still choose to stay.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Helping, like, that's a big story that is an animal on its own.
Yeah, and that goes into leadership and everything. John has been the biggest leader, when it comes to our company and guiding that. And that takes a lot of active effort to make that happen. You have to really want that, because just naturally, your company or your group of people that you're managing are not going to end up that way. And they're coming into a company, with all kinds of preconceived notions, and you have to reinforce to them, no, this is actually how it is. Like, and when I call you to talk to you about something, a mistake, it's just a mistake. Let's just fix it and move on. It's like, well, you're not going to scream at me? You're not going to yell at me? I'm not going to get fired? It's like, no.
I'm not here to like take advantage of every moment of insecurity and exploit that to get more mediocre work. Because I believe all mediocre work comes from feeling like you are disincentivized or that you are not properly invested in. People by nature want to succeed.
Absolutely.
And if you give them the fuel to succeed,
and tap into that, then you get, you get two employees. You get, every employee is going to work twice as hard. Like, it just makes a big difference, and they enjoy it. They enjoy it.
It creates. So that's goes into belief systems, but it's a good example of a belief system that's not necessarily individual or specific. It's more broad. Most Americans, 70% of Americans think it's okay to be unhappy at work. That is a belief system. It's a cultural belief system. So we have a choice, and you medical belief systems, how you were trained in medical school is a belief system. You had a choice and you chose, I don't like that belief system. Yeah. And so when we become aware of it, we realize that there's this fear of like, oh, well, if I go against that, there's going to be like fire and brimstone, and then you realize, no, there's actually a whole other world.
Yeah, like Squid Game.
Squid Game, exactly. I will get chopped up and fall off the ladder. So belief systems are huge. Belief systems are huge, and they obviously link into health, mental health, physical health, diet, all of it. Belief systems are the fundamental guardrails that we create our lives around.
Absolutely. I like that. Next one is spirituality, is the next part of the wheel.
Why don't you talk about spirituality?
So I know that like the general rule is we're supposed to stay away from religion and politics, right?
But you hate the general rules. Diving in.
I just, as I said before, like I have a challenge bug inside of me that I just can't.
Maybe I'll take spiritual. No.
So, well, I mean, I think to take another like 10,000 foot view and really back up on what is spirituality. It's a core belief system that there is something out there that's bigger than you. And the way I like to describe it, and there's all different forms and different types, and we're not going to get into all of that, but coming up with or finding a system of seeing yourself and how your piece plays on the board game, is what that's all about. And I think just having that perspective on life and how you fit in and how you fit into all the people around you, is really important. And I think in general, it just makes you a better human being. To have a bigger perspective on things, just generally speaking, but that's where whatever that might be. And so for some people it's, it's in Christianity, or it's in, Hinduism, or it's in there's all kinds of things, Buddhism rather, and there's all kinds of, or it's just a way of seeing the world, or it's something that has kind of caught a little bit more traction in the past 5 or 10 years is the using the term the universe as an omniscient source of energy, and there's all kinds of things, and I think we'll never know no one will ever be able to know
I know
the precise answer. I mean, we have faith, and that's great, and that's wonderful. But I think that in reality, the truth is that it's a combination of several different things, without going into too much detail. You have your belief system, but there's a lot of energy and truth to many religions, I feel. That's how I'd leave it for the podcast.
No, I think that's all valid, and I think it's the recognition that there is some sort of untangible thing that you can link to, not only in good times, but in the times of struggle. And I remember the moment that you told me you prayed. I was like, oh, I didn't know you prayed. And you were like, yeah, I pray. And I was like, oh, well, excuse me. But no, I mean, I think that there's this whole, that especially now we finally have come into this time, and we have to look at spirituality and religious evolution into what I would call modern spirituality, which is more just of an identification with something broader. There's obviously still people that practice organized religion in a capacity that is both healthy and unhealthy. We now know that there's a million different versions of the Christian God, and it's all based on the church you happen to go to. So there's
a million different types of Bibles.
There's a million different interpretations of that.
There's a new one.
Yeah, is there?
There's a new Bible that just came out.
Did you write it?
No, I didn't write it. No, it's the.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's the Trump Bible.
Oh,
Make America
sorry.
Great Again.
We are not gonna go there today. We got to backtrack. I was not ready for that. Oh my God. So back to the actual Bibles. Oh my God. So yes, not that.
But I'm dependable. You can always depend on me.
You are consistent. But no, so I think besides that little curveball, but yes, there's I think that as long as for your sense of spirituality, I think if it is allowing you not only to approach life with some sense of compassion and grace, but also gives you sturdiness to weather the hard times, then it's something that's going to benefit you. If it's something that is, whatever it is, pushing you to pass judgment, pushing you to create anything that separates you and moves you further away from compassion, then it's not spirituality that's going to benefit your health.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the long and short of it. And that's no ding on any spirituality, because I've seen people that practice all of them in ways that have
healthy and unhealthy.
Yeah, and unhealthy. You know, I got looped into a cult when I was younger, and that was a whole journey. It was not Scientology, but I did, and it became really, really toxic. It was a big. There was years of religious trauma from that.
Yeah. Well, you grew up in Colorado, so that's where.
Exactly. If you're in Colorado, that's where it's at. Actually, this didn't even happen there. This happened in New York, of course.
Cults like Starbucks out there.
It was a Starbucks cult. I admit it.
Well, I'm a big fan of spirituality that is relevant to day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And how to do that. So a lot of people as an argument to it, well, it's just not a part of my life. I don't have any room for that right now.
Yeah.
When people say that, I know they think, well, okay, I don't have the time or the energy to drive to, a cathedral or a church or whatever, for 3 hours every Sunday but I'll tell you a story about what happened yesterday. I don't think we've even talked to you about this yet, but my wife is a very spiritual person. She picked up Declan, my son, from school, and they went to this is bad. They went to Taco Bell to get slushies. Yeah,
It got worse.
so yeah, anybody that hears that, don't tell anyone. So when they're in the parking lot, they see an elderly homeless woman that's sitting outside. My wife talks to her and wants to get her a meal, so she takes her to the to walk in, and the lady's asking, she's like, well, I'm not allowed to go in there, and she said, no, you can. You're a customer just like anybody else. Come on, so she convinces the lady to come in the store, and she's paying at the little electronic kiosk because nowadays I guess cashiers have lost the ability to count change. So she's paying at the thing, and she gets the lady a meal or whatever, and Sophia and Declan's meal comes up, so they get their food, and the lady's still waiting for her meal, and she's getting ready to leave, and she looks back and she sees the staff working there arguing with the lady, and she's like, but and she's being very sweet. She's like, well, no, I got a drink and I got the burrito or whatever, and they're like, no, this isn't yours. How did you pay for it? Like, where's your receipt? How did you get out of here? And Sophia turned right back around, and it all came out.
Yeah, I'm sure it did.
And the lady was very happy, and she got her food.
God, I wish that was trending. Did someone film it?
Well, I know. But that just happened yesterday. But that, the motivation, the internal motivation or belief system that came from spirituality. Yeah. When she walked up and she saw a woman that was destitute, she thought, that's still, there's not a whole lot of difference between her and me. Yeah. On the board. And if I can reach down to help her out a little bit, that's universally a good thing. Yeah. When everybody else there in the restaurant was moving away and making faces and saying weird comments and stuff. Yeah. So that's like a practical, I think.
I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, and that's we're trying to teach our son those types of things too, and to have that kind of compassion as well. So
that's how we build a healthier culture. Is not spirituality that's based on compassion, and it actually is probably perfect because it goes into the next part of the wheel, which is, I think, relationships. Right?
Relationship. I don't believe that we're designed to live through and go through life alone. No. There's so much out there that's important to discuss and communicate and get our neurons firing. Can you imagine if you went a year without ever communicating with anyone? Yeah. At all, not electronically, not anything, and for a year, can you imagine how much brain atrophy you would actually have, from certain parts of your brain that's just, if you don't use it, you lose it, right? And so there's so much of that's important that helps to having good, solid relationships, help to reinforce positive belief systems and keeping you on track. Like if you have 3 people in a room that's talking about good belief systems, then you're bound to land on a good one. Yeah. And you all work together towards that. So it's a big part of Living360, I think.
I agree, and I think one of the things that I am not shy about saying is that I believe that the relationships that you carry are going to reflect where you go, and you should feel very at peace removing relationships that don't serve you, because you also don't serve them. That's sort of there's this idea that, especially, and I think this is ingrained when we're children, that we need to be friends with everybody and liked by everybody and invest our energy into everybody and be popular and and this and that. And what happens is that we have a limited amount of energy, to do all of the things that we want to do in our lives and all the things that we want to do in our day. And especially if you're going to invest in this wheel of health, you have a limited amount of energy, and the people you choose to pour that energy into, you will either get more of it back out or it will just vanish. It'll just dissipate. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of energy consumption. And I'm a little weary of calling those people energy vampires. I call them more energy in situations that are not energetically beneficial to either party, because it's not like there's people that are just running around the streets like a Hoover. But it's
some people are.
There are, but I think for the most part, situations either bring the best out of people or the worst. this relationship has brought the worst out of me. No, this is this is the only podcast we're doing. It's over.
Yeah, good, because I was about to call you out on the running around town like a Hoover like comment.
And this is the therapy side. But no, I think relationships. It's you surround yourself with people that are building, and you're going to build with them, and you create your unit.
Yeah.
Whether it's your partner, your friendships, your friends, your family, and taking relationships seriously, both the need for them and the need to engage with them responsibly is a huge defining factor in how successful you can be.
Yeah, and it is risky, especially as we get older. And we'll talk about this a little bit in neuroplasticity, but with age comes experiences and the trauma word.
Trauma.
Yeah, we need like
dun dun dun.
We need some music behind that. So it comes with that because our brains lock into those old triggers of things. And such and such did me wrong, and
did me wrong.
There I was minding my own business, and so we're less likely to put ourselves out there, for the next relationship or for the next relationship, and then before too long we don't know how, to put ourselves out there.
It happens a lot.
And especially as we get older, and and it's I think it's important because it is a big part of life. It's a part of our brain function. It's a part of our accountability. That's probably the biggest word I can use with relationships.
Oh, I really like that. Yeah.
And that accountability is I know we have that, because John is like the type of friend, and it's always good to have a friend like this that will be honest with you, even if it comes out of left field, even if it hurts or whatever. Because a lot of times I'll come up with something crazy, and John will say, "Oh, okay, we're not doing that." Yeah. First of all, that's usually how it starts. It's first of all, we're not doing that.
First off, that is not how it's happening. First of all, that is not how I communicate.
But having that in a relationship format is huge, whatever it looks like, Yeah. And so I have a question for you. This is a little experiment. How many followers do you have on Instagram?
10,428. No, I'm kidding. I don't know.
Roughly.
It's 10,000, something like 10,000.
Okay.
Because it was that's where it was when I was in music years ago, and I don't think somewhere in there. I don't think it ever grew from there.
So I'm showing my age, and this is really old school. I need to get better at social media. I'm one of those, but I don't do it enough as I should. So how many of those followers would you? This is really old school. How many of those followers would you write a handwritten letter to tell them happy birthday?
Well, I don't know how many of them are not bots, so that would be the first part.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I've never had the social media thing. I was in music when I was in New York, and there's so much pressure to you need to do this, and Jenny from Wisconsin just got 1 trillion followers and a record deal, doing a TikTok dance in her living room, and you need to do that. And I was like, oh my God, I spent all this time putting together these wrote every line of this music, every lyric, every harmony, and then Jenny does a TikTok and she's getting, and they're like, what would be better than this great aria you wrote is a TikTok to WAP. That's what I think would put you on the board. Wow. So, I never had that thing, and I hired somebody to help build the little bit of following, and that's why it got to there. But as far as engagement or interaction, my understanding of it has always been that the only way you were really getting engagement was to have to go actively out and do this following and unfollowing, and it was really not about hey, I want to invest and engage with people. It was more I need to trap them in a net so they come back and my stuff, and so I mean, handwritten note, probably only the people that are in my life, and my guess is of those 10,000, it's probably 70 that I've known since whenever, that I've met over the course of, and that's probably generous, maybe 10. 70 I would wish happy birthday to. 10 I would write a letter for.
But that, so I think that those are things that we should be aspiring to. When people are well, how many followers do you have? Well, I have this many followers. I was watching I think it was either Dr. Phil or something, and the son was criticizing the mom, and it's like, oh, you're a horrible person, you're worthless because you don't even have any followers. You know, that's it. When did that become a diss? Like, I don't remember.
Boom.
Yeah,
With your 128 followers. Boom.
yeah, it's like so I think aspiring to those relationships that we would write a letter to, or even the 3 o'clock friend, you know, like that kind of thing, or that accountability, like aspiring to that's true wealth in the way I look at it.
Yeah, I love that, and I think it segues perfectly into sort of like the final part of the wheel, which is community. You know, and that is not only culturally super relevant, because I think we don't have a lot of community in America. We're starting to learn that that's essential. There was a period where we did, but it was not really based on the same principles as I think it is. We have to remember it's a young country, comparatively. And so, you know, now we're recognizing, hey, we need to be invested, committed, and a part of some sort of community. And you know, this is not just like an abstract thing. This has been studied. This has been proven. Parts of the world that have a greater sense of community, a greater sense of communal responsibility. They know their neighbors. They know the oldest person in the neighbor or in the village and the youngest, and this have historically low cardiovascular disease, historically low rates of cancer. Yeah, depression. Yeah, community and health are literally scientifically linked. It's not even a discussion.
Yeah. No, it is important, and it takes active effort, you know, in order to seek that out, because not every community is going to be for you, you know, and at different times of your life, you know, depending on what's going on, like certain types of communities might fit you better, you know, than others. Yeah. You know, so there's a lot to it.
Yeah, and I think you find community. We found it here, and when we moved down to Florida, I really, that's when I started to learn, oh, this is what it feels like to be a part of a community. You know, I was in New York for 8 years, and I definitely had friends, but I didn't realize how isolated I was, even with all the people that were kind of consistently around in that city, versus people that would just say, hey, like, you want to come over to the pool, or you want to come, you know, go to the beach, or have coffee, or have lunch, and call and check in and say, hey, how are you doing? And how is your dad? How is your, you know, and I'm like, don't you ask me that. It's very invasive.
Yeah. Why do you want to know?
Why do you want to know? What you police?
Yeah. That's awesome.
You know, but it was a little bit of like a battered dog syndrome, but then over time you start to realize, oh, this is what it feels like to be plugged into a place where people care. And I think that there's a lot of places where that can happen. Some people find that in their yoga studio, you know, the fitness thing. You can totally, but there's so many different places to find a community. And I think it happens naturally if you're doing, you know, these things. Like if you're out and you're being active and you're focused on your own health, you'll naturally end up in places where you'll meet somebody and they'll be like, hey, come join my cult.
Yeah, oh God, I hope not. Hopefully not. We're not encouraging that.
No. There's your community. Yeah. Bam.
But that is how it started. Like, there are toxic communities.
Yeah. And you should, and yeah. So healthy community, again, just like any of this, you know, I think it plays a huge role in how you process life.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So that completes our wheel.
That completes the wheels.
Yeah. So this is not a fixed, you know, set in stone wheel. Like, we're going to be adding things to it. We're going to be expounding on all these things as we go along, you know, but these are aspects of life that we find is really important. And in order to really dig in, we have to look at a 360-degree approach, which is what we're trying to do here with the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And do your own wheel, you know, like these are the ones that we do, but take time to do your own wheel and look at, what do I need? Like in my 360 wheel, if I had time, you know, if I had unlimited energy to invest and I wasn't in a situation or circumstance that prevented me, where would I put my energy to kind of feel like I'm healthier? I mean, these can be little direct sort of or indirect guides, but you know, some people you can experiment with that. But I think taking the time to think through it and putting pen to paper and making room for that in your life is sort of a really early step. And it's amazing to see how things ricochet when you take just a little bit of time to focus on yourself.
Absolutely. Because we take that same amount of time and energy into our jobs, you know, like, you know, you'll have a quarterly meeting or a monthly meeting or like a checkup, or we do reviews. We look at every aspect of the workplace, to try and make it as efficient as possible and everything. So, why not do that with your health?
Yeah.
It's really, really important. And we preach this all the time because we only get one life. On every tombstone, there's two numbers. There's a start and an end.
Yeah.
And there's a dash in the middle.
Yeah.
And that dash in the middle is where everything happens.
Woo. Reverend Neil. That was good. That was really good. I like that.
But that's what we focus on.
We are living in the dash.
Yeah, we are the dash.
We are the dash. So what do you want to be on that dash? I love that. I think that's so good. That is mic drop worthy. I love it. So listen, I hope you guys enjoyed this. We really do. I think the next episode that we're looking at doing is going to be neuroplasticity, which is super interesting. This is a little more abstract, but this next one is going to be a little bit more focused on the biology and science of the brain.
Oh, absolutely. Bring your geek out hats.
Bring your geek out hats.
This is going to be fascinating.
We're going to dig in. Yeah. We're going to dig into how the brain forms belief systems, how the brain forms personal belief systems and cultural belief systems, and then why the incredible rise of psychedelic medication has been such a revolutionary breakthrough for our mental cultural health.
Because you can mold all of those things just like clay. That's where the neuroplasticity term comes from. There are and I can go into it. So we're out of time. So, but thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy everything. If you have any questions, please reach out to us, and we would love to answer all of your questions and maybe come up with some new topics. If you guys have some aspects of the wheel that you'd like us to throw in and add, we'd be happy to do that.
We are here to answer any questions, and if there's stuff or topics that you want to hear about, don't hesitate to reach out and let us know. You can always find us in the clinic, or you can find us on the Instagram, which is Team 360 Health.
And the website for the clinic is team360health.com.
Yep. So we look forward to seeing you over there.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.